can help the success in science. But as a way of disclosure, the way I see myself being highly qualified to give this presentation is because I think all of us actually have tremendous experience in terms of application and manuscript submission. And you can see myself actually continue to have many rejections from journals, from papers, from funding agencies. And as a result, I think we all have probably shared experience in this process. And unfortunately, I don't get money for that. And as I said, this is following the guideline of American Heart Association that, I cannot vouch everything I said is useful. As I said, from the applicants and the author's perspective, you have data, you have your ideas, you think that the peer review is really a process for you to get money and paper, right? So this is the outcome, and here is your beginning. And clearly, if you look at this way, the peer review is absolutely the obstacle of your success, right? That in reality, if you look at it from the other aspect, it's actually very different. And also, for most of us, for myself particularly, when I started in the field, I didn't know anybody in the field. And then the peer review process to me is really just a black box. I send a paper, I send a grant, and somehow I got a piece of paper coming back. It's pretty much like a blinding date, right? And you go into a place where you want to see the girl, or me, and you don't know what's going on, and you can see that this is actually a blind date convention at the Wuhan University. That's amazing. That I wish I became a graduate student these days. They didn't offer me that kind of thing. But as I said, most of the times, why this peer review process is so stressful for us. This is our expectations, the romantic expectation about the blind date. But in current days, I realize that both at NIH as also at HLI, 1 out of 8 grants will be successful, and the outcome is really majority of them actually are not successful. And so it is really perhaps why we hate that process. We feel that this whole peer review is actually your enemy. It's actually never been a promoter of your career. But if you look at it from the reviewer's perspective or from the funding agent's perspective, it's exactly the opposite. They have money and they have a piece of pages that have to fill, right? And HLI has an annual budget, and any of the journals, they must fill their papers. And they use the peer review for only one purpose, is to find the best one to fund and the best stories to come out. Why? Because if you are successful with your money to generate good outcome, the money will translate into more trust, and the government or whatever funding agency will be more successful. And same as paper, if the journal actually have the best stories being published, the journal will become higher impact as a result, more people will come in. So peer review is actually a very positive thing for the whole process. And the important thing is how we kind of make them together and make actually both sides are successful. And we'll all talk about the major criteria of success for any scientific product, either paper or a proposal. It turns out they are almost the same in terms of criteria that we used as peer review, either for journals or for a scientific proposal. Those are actually the specific criteria that actually we use in the people's mind, in the reviewer's mind about a proposal. That is the impact, the novelty, the significance, and investigators, and data quality and clarity. But all of that actually turned out is many of that aspect is more than just the science part, but also the art of making the peer review process actually work. And so what I hope is actually I listed some of the myths, and that when I was a young investigator or junior investigator, I hope I'm still young, but as a junior investigator, sort of this is the mindset when I enter a review process. Right? So number one is peer reviewers are aliens. I have no idea who they are. They are probably superheroes or flying in the cloud. But turns out they are real human beings. They are staff members that you're supposed to know. They're editors, editorial members actually are listing those journals. And they're clearly peer review colleagues that you know who they are. And it's up to you to know them. It's very important for you to actually know them. And many of us become peer review process members. So you know yourself too, are a member of peer review. It turned out to be very important for young investigators and junior investigators to make yourself as part of that process as soon as possible, as quick as possible. So to do that, you need to have good mentors and honest friends. We talk about this actually through our presentation with Dr. Chen and Dr. Liao, and then to promote your science to your colleagues every opportunity you have. And forum like this, actually, with presenting your posters and participating in scientific conferences, and to really get involved in your professional societies, which I think it's actually always been very helpful in my case as well. And never turn down an offer or request to review papers, at the beginning at least, as long as your time actually allows, because that actually helps you to understand from the other perspective as well. So the other myth is they always feel that peer reviews don't know what is good. It's like you guys just, reviewers are not experts, and they always make mistakes about my grant or my papers because I'm actually a lot better than them. Turns out when we look at this criteria that we actually investigated, most of the funding agency or paper reviewers that they are looking at, they can be distilled into only three simple things. Idea. Is this idea really exciting and new? And whether the evidence that you provide is really strong. And the story that you presented, whether it's really appealing. And we always say that you can have beautiful characters in a Shakespeare's sort of a play, but you can never be as good as Shakespeare because he knows how to tell the story. And so how to improve the odds of the success is really when you have ideas, you have to really improve the clarity and identify the gaps, as we all talk about. The evidence has to be multi-layered and with all the controls. And again, the story, this is really the art part. That is how you organize and present a logical and compelling presentation. The other side is also not true. Peer reviewers are super experts, so they're supposed to know everything. As a result, I don't need to tell them. They should be very clear to them already. And they are not. All reviewers are specialized expertise, but only limited in their area. So not necessarily the same expertise as you are. As a result, I believe that you have to assume, I learned that from my own experience, that you have to assume that reviewers, you cannot assume actually reviewers are automatically can appreciate your science. You have to kind of continue to educate your reviewers about why your idea is better than others, why you need to present the critical information. And so the assumption is actually you are the best expert in the world. That means you have to elevate your reviewers to your same level. The one thing we learned is that the reviewers read every page of my grant. And the truth is they are not. Most important information or opinions actually are formed within the first few minutes after reading your grant or paper. And that's true because we are human. Every reviewers are human. We are actually under this spell of using the first impression and to form our opinions. And the rest is actually confirmation. Because if we see this grant is really exciting, the rest is to see where, why, to confirm that sort of feeling. And then you have a reservation from the first reading of the first page, and you start to actually seek all the other evidence to support your opinion. So that is actually turned out to be an extremely important aspect. Why that is I call the value, I was presenting this as the value of a first impression, that is in the abstract or cover letter or specific aim page. This is only one page, especially in the grant. If you think about NIH grants, if you ask for 5 years, that's about $1.25 million. And you ask for this money, and the first specific aim page is only 500 words. You average that, each word is about $20,000. And 一字千金 is absolutely true. So I actually discuss with our fellows all the time that why you need to use that comma, or why you need to use that PHE. And it turned out it costs $20,000 if you don't believe it. So this first page is so critical, and it has to be everything like Dr. Chen said. Every word has to be interrogated. If you see them as a $20,000, I think you'll be a lot more motivated to do so. And there's always this feeling that if I have a lot of data, I can overwhelm my reviewers, I'm going to be winning. So reviewers love more data. Is that true? Actually, that's not. Actually, if you have a lot of data, but rather than high quality and the clarity of why those data can support your aims, it's very counterproductive. So it's the rationale and the organization of this data is very, very important. And when you have many, many data, you have to be very careful how you present them in an artistic way so that it's concise, but yet still comprehensive. That is actually taking a tremendous effort to do that. And also, people believe that they love us to do more experiments, right? So in the proposal, we often have this sort of kitchen sink scenario where you put everything possible you can imagine in your experimental design. But in the end, it actually also has many counter effects in terms of the sacrifice of logic, priority, and the feasibility. In the resubmission process, there is a myth that the reviewers never change their mind. And once the review form opinion, it's very hard for them to change their opinion. But that's actually not true. If there is a very compelling resubmission with a very well-articulated argument why the reviewer is wrong, it has actually been received very well. Only thing you cannot do is to insult reviewers. We see plenty, especially at the NIH in the United States, sort of a study session where the reviewers are insulted for being biased or being non-professional, or even sometimes people use the word stupid in their response to the reviewers, and we turn out to be never being productive. Right, this is very interesting. Actually, that related to what Dr. Liao actually specified in the effectiveness of the grant proposal. People, I thought that peer review probably will weight all those criteria very equally. So NIH actually did a peer review study for the peer reviews. What they have found is that among all the scores that reviewers provided, they want to find out which criteria dictates the outcome the most. So which one is actually weighted the most, even though there's no numerical sort of weighting mechanism in the matrix. And what they found is if you can look at it, this is the outcome. This usually dictates the outcome. The overall impact score dictates the outcome of the grant the success of the proposal. And if you can look at it, the one that the most related is turned out to be the approach. It's the experimental approach and design part. The rest has certain contribution, like significant innovation in terms of the writing, and but the ones that the environmental investigators has the lowest sort of a predictable power for the outcome. That says a lot about how important for us to actually articulate and prepare the methods and the experimental approach section. So the other sort of a myth is that the reviewers should see what I see. There's always this assumption that if I see this, and the reviewer should be able to see that. And then back to the need to have an objective mentor or colleague to help you really see who you are and what is the feedback and what is the real deficiency that actually present in your work. And then lastly, we all think that, as I said at the beginning, from a reviewer's perspective, or from the applicant's perspective, the review process is really an obstacle for my success. And we heard many times, I complained all the time to reviewers that rejected my paper or did not view very well to my experimental proposals. But if I think back and think all the papers we eventually published, all the proposals eventually got funded, and I look at the first version that got rejected versus eventually the one actually were accepted, there are day and night differences. So the peer review worked in both ways. Peer review helped the funding agency and journals to really have a quality control. But I think the real impact from an applicant's perspective is that my science is far more better, and our manuscript, our report is far more comprehensive, and we actually sort of elevated the science to a different level. I think that's probably why I see this peer review process is really a winning platform for everyone. And everybody complain about the peer review from many aspects, but so far I don't believe we can really identify an alternative approach to really help the science and promote the science. So I guess the parting words for me to the young investigators, you gotta have a faith in the peer review process. And this is really going to be, if you know how to use it, if you have the right attitude, this is going to be a game changer for your career. It's going to be really helping your career rather than the obstruction of your career. With that, I hope that this process will help you, as I said, from the rejection to your success. Thank you.
Thanks, Mrs. I think we can